Mother's Day is approaching here in the UK, and I'm going to use these designs which I got from Canva. I've printed them onto some heat resistant transfer sheet for laser printers, and the laser print side is upmost. You can see it's a little bit matte. I haven't reversed my text because I'm going to use this thermal transfer foil, and I'm going to lay a sheet of that on top of my laser print. It will only work with laser print. I think you can use photocopier, but it needs to be a toner based print. So I'm just going to cut a little bit of this out, enough to cover my image. You're going to want the grey side facing down to your print, or whatever colour your foil has on the back, but you're going to want the metallic side facing upright towards you. You need to secure this down. I'm going to use some washi tape to hold mine down. And before I run this through my Mink machine, I'm going to cut off just this piece because I don't want to expose the floral heart to any kind of heat. So I'll remove that, and then I will be able to put that in between some parchment paper, and I will run it through. I have a Mink machine, but you can use a laminator if you don't have a Mink. Okay, excuse the angle. My lightest green, I've got it set to number 4, and I've placed my acetate and the foil in between two sheets of parchment, or a sheet folded over to make an envelope. And now you feed it through exactly as you would a laminator and wait for it to come out the other side. Okay, it's out and it's cooled down now. I'm just going to peel off one side, and then I can check to make sure that it's all covered. And it has done pretty well. I've just got a small section there that doesn't have foil on it. So I'm going to recover it and put it back into my parchment, and then I'll run it through the Mink again. Okay, let's check it this time. Just peel this off, and I'm peeling it back slowly. And yeah, that looks like it's covered really nicely. You do want to wait for it to cool down a little bit before you peel it off. That looks like it's covered much better. I could put this straight into my resin, but I want to do something a little different. I've put my gloves on and I've got the acetate on the parchment. I'm going to use the Resin UV resin, and I'm going to make some parchment paper, and it should lift this print off of the acetate and bond it into the resin paper. So I'm just going to give that a quick torch just to get rid of any bubbles that are in there. There's a few bubbles on the surface. And I can see them stuck to the foil, so I'm going to gently encourage them to float up to the surface so that I can pop them. If I leave the bubbles in there, it's likely to form a hole in the paper, and if it's over the foil, then it won't pick that up. So once I'm happy that they're popped, I can close my parchment down, and I will go ahead and make this in exactly the same way as I've made the other resin papers that you have seen. I'm putting an acrylic block on the top and using that to squash the resin. I can see the ring, the darker ring that is being made, and I want to make sure it's just covering the decal, and curing it now. That's done, and it's really thin. It's a very thin coat, and it's liable to crack if I try and peel this off, so I'm going to give it another coat on top. And this should give it some extra strength. It's purely just to give it enough strength so that when I peel it off of the acetate, it will not crack. So I'm going to spread this out now with my silicone tool just to get a pretty even coat. And as I do, I don't know if you can notice the dullness of the paper, the UV resin paper. That becomes a lot more clear, and the foil gets some extra shine. I'm going to put it into a new sheet of parchment paper. If you reuse the parchment too much, it will stick to your resin. And I'm just going to smooth this out with my fingers and try and remove any bubbles, make sure that I've got a nice smooth coat, and then I can go ahead and cure this again as normal. I can take this out of here now, and that peels off nicely. Peeling this off now, and it's bringing the foiling with it. So now I have foil trapped in the resin paper. I want to fit this in this mould, but this is slightly thicker, and if I try to cut it with a pair of scissors, it's particularly tough to get through, and you're going to end up just splitting it and cracking it. There you go. So the way to get around that without ruining it is to heat this up. I'm going to use my heat gun and just soften the resin, and then while it's still warm I will use some scissors to cut it. If you're going to do this, it's advisable to wear a mask, or at least make sure that you have enough ventilation in your room. So you can see how easy that was. I'm just heating it a little bit at a time as I'm going around, and it makes it so much easier to cut off the pieces that I need without splitting anything. So I'll shape this to fit into my mould. It's become a little bit warped where I've been heating it and then manoeuvring it with the scissors and my fingers. I'm going to put it back into the parchment paper and heat it up a little bit and squash it flat. I'll put my acrylic block on the top and just hold that flat with a weight until it's cooled down. Okay, so that's much flatter now, and that will fit in there. So I'm just going to clean my mould out a little bit with some tape, and then I can pour some resin, and I'm going to use epoxy resin for this. So let me go ahead and get my PPE on and then mix up some resin to put in there. Just clean the mould first, get any bits that might be in there out. The floral heart acetate I'm going to put in on its own, and I'm using a white acrylic paint pen to colour in on the back, on the shiny side. So the other side is the laser print toner, and this is on the shiny back acrylic side. So I'm just tracing around the outline and then filling it in with the acrylic paint marker, and I will let this completely dry. This will give me a much stronger image. It's very wishy-washy at the moment because it is a watercolour image and it would get lost. This way I get this really nice clean look with a very vivid image. And I need to leave this completely dry, but if I turn it over you can see how strong that is. Okay, the heart is dry now, and I coloured the back. It's not completely coloured, but it's more than enough to make it a nice vivid, it looks like a die cut basically. So I'm going to use that at the bottom. I've mixed up 20 mils of craft resin, and that's degassing, and I'm going to use this interference powder. I'm going to paint that around just the geometric sides of my mould. I'm going to try and be as careful as possible. I've got this makeup brush, it's an eyeshadow brush I think. So I'll paint around the edges, and then I'll try and clear any that might have got on the bottom using some isopropyl alcohol, either a baby wipe or a cotton bud, just to make sure that there's nothing anywhere other than around the edge. And I'm just going to tap it on the table just to get rid of any loose powder. Okay, that's pretty clean now. So now I can pour in my resin. As I say, this is my first layer. I'm just going to do 20 mils, and then I can set the floral piece of acetate in. That may even be more than I need because I still got to put the other layer on, so probably could have done with about half that amount. So I'm just going to give that a minute and let the bubbles come up. Okay, I'm going to pop this in now, and I will start submerging it. I'm just going to use the end of my brush for a minute. I'm keeping this one side upright so that I try and make sure there's no air trapped underneath it. That looks pretty good. And then I can just use this stick to position it. Now I'd like it to just sink a little bit. There we go. Take those edges under. Right, I don't want to scratch that because it will take the image off. It is toner, and this is the print side that is up. That's covered. Just get the bubbles to come off if there are any clinging. Okay, so I'm happy with that positioning, and I think this is actually tight enough fit that I don't think it's going to be moving around too much. Leaving this now until this is set, and then I will be able to pour my next layer and set this in. So I'll be back when I'm ready for that. See you then. I mixed up some more resin and I've poured that on top. This is not completely set. It's only been setting for a few hours. It's like sticky toffee so that nothing is moving, and this should mean that I won't get any visible lines between my layers. So I'm laying my next piece on top in the same way, squeezing any of the air out underneath, and then I'm going to pour some more resin on the top. I haven't filled it to the top of the mould completely. I'm going to remove this from the mould once it's cured, and then I will give it a top coat. This piece I think is heavy enough that it shouldn't float, so now all I have to do is just leave this to cure. Okay, this is mostly set, but it's still a little soft, and annoyingly I have a bubble in the surface. So I'm just going to pop it with my tweezers, and I want to open it out because I am going to be putting another layer, a top layer, on here. And I'm hoping that if I open this out a little bit, when the next coat goes on, it will fill the hole and it shouldn't be noticeable. So I'll just open that a little bit, and I'll be back now when this is completely set, and then I can give it the top coat. Okay, I should be ready to demold this now. So I'm just going to pull the mould away from the edges. And I've got this lovely iridescence along the outside. I think I have got a little bit of that seeped into my resin, so it's not quite as clear as I perhaps wanted it to be, but all in all I think that's quite nice. So I didn't fill this all the way up. I've got a slight dip, and I'm going to give this a top coat of resin now. So I'm just going to put this on top of a mould, and then I'm going to mix up some more of the craft resin and flood this top. Okay, so it's still a little bit bubbly, but hopefully that will degas once I pour this into a thin sheet on top of here. So I've got the pump for my bottles, so I just did one pump of each. and I'm using craft resin, which is a 1:1 by volume. I think that's probably perfect. So why wouldn't I have just used the acetate piece with the foiling on it? Well, it was quite a large piece that I needed to fit into this heart, and it would have gone from edge to edge in the heart. And resin doesn't always like to stick to acetate, you can remove it. So it may have weakened the piece. Because I used the resin paper, it meant that it bonded completely and became part of the piece, and the weakness wasn't there. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment, and if you haven't subscribed, please do, it's free. Thanks so much for watching, and come back and see what I'm going to do next time. Bye.